Good evening and welcome to... Good evening and welcome to Electronic Game Information and our quarantine edition of Electronic Game Information, coming to you from our remote headquarters here in beautiful Northeast Los Angeles, California. We have a wonderful show for you tonight. We have all sorts of segments and discussions, and we will be looking for your chats. We will be thinking about you while we talk about the games that are on everyone's mind today. But first, let's dive right into the news. ReCore is, of course, a game that came out only a few years ago, but it seems like it has made a big, deep impact because since it came out, there has been no exciting Xbox One news. And if you look back and you think about, well, how excited we were when ReCore was announced, they were bringing Kenji Inafune, the creator of Mega Man, together with Retro Studios, the people behind Metroid Prime and Donkey Kong Country Returns. ReCore was a very exciting bit of news indeed. It came out with mixed reviews. It was a middling somewhere between 6 and 8 out of 10, depending on which news source you were looking for ReCore reviews from. If I say what it is a 7 out of 10 game, even with the very large update that it got only a few years after it came out. So the sales are plummeting. It's got a 20-plus hour campaign, and it's free on Xbox Game Pass, and there has not been good Xbox news since. I recently just purchased Diablo 3 for $30 on Nintendo Switch. This is, of course, a game that I already purchased on the PlayStation 4 for $30. So that's $60 for Diablo 3. That's $29.99 plus $30. So $59.99, or if you want to bring that, but I've only spent 8 hours playing it. So if you do the math, I have a lot of time to go to make that $1 per 1 hour of gameplay happen based on the spreadsheet. And if you look very closely, I'm just going to kind of pan over it like so. You might be able to see that Diablo 3 has a 60 and an 8 next to it on the spreadsheet. So that was the spreadsheet update here on Electronic Game Information. Nobody else is talking about the spreadsheet, the great spread, the script. Ninja Gaiden Yaiba Z was a game that came out in 2014 or 15, and it was met with very bad reviews. People didn't know who it was for or what it was, and it had a very, very, very painterly cel-shaded style that was very difficult to make out what was happening, especially if you have a black and white printer at home like we do at the Electronic Game Information Remort headquarters in beautiful uptown Northeast Los Angeles, California. Hellraid 2 is Dying Light 2 DLC. This just in. EGI exclusive. We know that Doom 64 has sold quite well on the Nintendo Switch, leading us to ask an EGI exclusive question, which is that is Heretic going to be next up on the eShop by 2020 holiday? I have it written down right here. Will the success of Doom 64 mean that we will get this game and the sequel on eShop by holiday 2020? This game in it is my Heretic or Hexen, and also don't forget the sequels, Heretic 2 and Hexen 2. They were the two. One was a sequel to the other, and then they diverged into two separate franchises. Alan. So let's check in really quick with Alan Resnick, special correspondent, friend of the show, EGI exclusive fan of the show, Alan Resnick. Alan, how are you doing here? It was a hot day today, wasn't it?
Absolutely, Robbie. And I just want to say I am just so happy to be here with you because you are a bright light in a dark, dark world.
Well, Alan, I'm throwing over to you for one reason and one reason only, which is that I want to hear your thoughts on the possibility of Heretic or Hexen or Heretic 2 or Hexen 2 being added to the eShop by the end of the year.
Yeah, it's a thrilling prospect to imagine that those games could be added to the eShop. And I want you to know that I'm doing a lot better than the last couple times you've seen me. And I'm just happy to be on EGI, and I'm fully hydrated.
Fully hydrated. Important thing to do on a hot day like it is today. The sweat's running down the side of the head, the back of the neck, down all the way down to the lower back. So it's not a lie. It's a hot day, but we have the air conditioning on, we have the fan on. We are fans of the show, and we are ready to bring you more Heretic or Hexen news. So I wanted to, Alan, if I could get a quick response from you for some of the text that I have highlighted here on this sort of fact sheet for Heretic and Hexen. The Heretic was one of the first first-person games to feature inventory manipulation and the ability to look up and down.
Huh? Is that true? How do you know all this stuff?
Well, this is just printed right off of a Heretic and Hexen fan site.
Got it. Wow.
So fans of the show, or fans of Heretic, or maybe they're fans of the show, we don't know. But the fact is that we're talking about a game that broke the mold, that let you look up and down while you were moving around and manipulating the inventory.
Any fan of Heretic is a fan of EGI. I think there's probably a big crossover in that marketplace.
Absolutely. And if you're a fan of Heretic, there's a good chance you're a fan of Hexen. And if you're a fan of Heretic and Hexen, then maybe you're a fan of Hexen 64 on the Nintendo 64, one of the great 4-player cooperative Hexen games on the Nintendo 64. This just in, Devil's Third is the game that we are thinking about right now because it's not been on sale, even though it was not a smashing success as a Devil's Third game. Although it did answer the question, what would happen if a man with very, very questionable morals got to make whatever he wanted for the Wii U? It came out near the end of the Wii U's life cycle. We do not own a copy of it here at Electronic Game Information. I don't know anyone who owns a copy of it. But if you are looking for a sword gun mercenary type of game from the maker of Ninja Gaiden and Ninja Gaiden 2, you might want to look at Devil's Third. This is an EGI exclusive. This is a new segment. We got a new segment incoming. Alan, are you ready? Are you excited? This is a brand new segment. We've never before been heard of, never before been seen here on Electronic Game Information.
Oh boy. You can't prepare me enough for these new segments, Robby. And I just want to quickly say that I'm better. I can come over now.
We can't have you coming over right now, Alan, because we need you right where you are, because you have to answer the questions that I send to you with the microphone to you through the internet about the new segment. So this is a new segment. It's called Whatever Happened To, and the game, and it's asking. It's whatever happened to a specific game, and tonight's game is, of course, Call of Cthulhu, Destiny's End on the PlayStation 2, and maybe and it could have been Xbox, it could have been PC. It came out. Speaking of the end of the life cycle, it came out near the end of the PS2 life cycle. So you can imagine that they were probably thinking that they would re-release it as a remaster on the at that moment in 2005 when Call of Cthulhu Destiny's End was announced for the PlayStation 2 with the trailer at E3, which is canceled this year. Are you following with me, Alan?
Yes, and I am absolutely at the edge of my seat trying to find out what the heck happened to this game.
Whatever happened to Call of Cthulhu Destiny's End? This is the question that we're always asking ourselves at this time of year, because we're so close to when E3 would normally be. And
I wish I just could know what happened to this game.
I wish this. Well, we're going to find out, Alan, because we have a EGI exclusive segment called Call of Cthulhu. Whatever happened to Call of Cthulhu? Yeah. Destiny's End.
What happened?
Well, we're gonna find out right now. So we have a quick video clip to refresh people on what Call of Cthulhu Destiny's End happened. What happened to it?
And then I'll be at your house right after this.
No, you're gonna say right there.
This game has not yet been rated.
And we're back, Alan. I'm so excited that we were able to watch that incredible trailer from E3 2005 for Call of Cthulhu: Destiny's End.
Absolutely.
Alan,
and E3 is canceled.
And E3 is canceled this year, so we're gonna have to figure out something to do. But Alan, what are people saying? What are people saying in the chat? What are people wanting? Are they asking any questions about Call of Cthulhu: Destiny's End? Are they asking any important questions about Call of Cthulhu: Destiny's End?
Absolutely, Robby. Dylan Dummies says, at Robby Ratcliffe, dude, this is a long trailer. So any comments from you would be greatly appreciated.
Well, it was a long trailer, but that was an announcement trailer, so they had to make it long. They had to give people an idea of what they could be excited about, because the Call of Cthulhu: Destiny's End had only been thought of at that point, and it had not ever manifested itself. It was not out.
Right. Absolutely. And let's see what we got here. Ian-K1 says, I'm buying this for sure, with 2 exclamation points. So that's a double whammy for you. That's a lot of love for Robby.
A lot of love for Robby. It's a lot of love for Alan. It's a lot of love for Electronic Information and our brand new segment, Whatever Happened to Call of Cthulhu: Destiny's End. Well, Alan, just to answer your question from right at the top of the segment, we have,
Whatever happened?
Course, breaking news that Call of Cthulhu: Destiny's End was planned on being a follow-up from the wonderful Headfirst games, the follow-up to Call of Cthulhu: Dark Corners of the Earth, which of course was on the Xbox and PlayStation. Belay that, it was not the PlayStation, it was the PC, Xbox, and PC Headfirst games. It had a little smiley face on the logo, and it was a Call of Cthulhu: Dark Corners of the Earth was, of course, a kind of first-person survival puzzle-solving adventure game and it really broke all the rules because it had no heads-up display. And if you were running around first person and you were firing the pistol or the rifle, and you were following behind the soldiers who were chasing down the sick, twisted demons in Innsmouth, the damned town Innsmouth, then you would imagine that you would be seeing how many bullets you had in the rifle or the gun, and you couldn't.
Well, I'm absolutely very interested in everything that you've just said, and I just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for saying it.
Thank you for the bottom of your heart, because Call of Cthulhu: Destiny's End also comes from a long lineage of games that based on H.P. Lovecraft stories, like Call of Cthulhu: Shadow of the Comet, which was, of course, a point-and-click adventure game with a lot of heart, a lot of great pixel art. Look, if you can take a look at the wonderful detail that you see in the pixel art here in this EDI exclusive printout of a screenshot from Call of Cthulhu: Shadow of the Comet, you can imagine that there was a lineage, there was a discussion that was being had behind closed doors over what to make the game look like, and they had all of the things that they needed. It was a sequel to a game that came out, so that they had that going for it, and it had a great and talented studio behind it. The good people at Headfirst Games.
And they know how to make games at Headfirst Games. They knew how to make,
because they made a game that came out. It was called Call of Cthulhu: Dark Corners of the Earth. And I always wonder about the Dark Corners of the Earth.
Me as well.
Like, where are they? What happens in them? This is an EGI exclusive thought, which is that if there are so many dark corners of the Earth, why can't we go out there with our Navy ships and shine light into them?
Wow, what a fascinating
Why can we illuminate
question.
the dark corners of the Earth, Alan?
I would have to agree with Robby on this one, that we should, at this point in time in the year 2020, with things going so well, we should be able to illuminate the dark corners with a very bright light, maybe an LED light.
Well, if you think about what happened at the end of Dark Corners of the Earth on the Xbox and PC, is that you actually did join up with the soldiers, with men. I don't know if it was the Navy or if the Army had ships, but you definitely were in a ship by the end, and you were out there shining a light in the form of heavy artillery at Dagon, the demigod that lives off of the coast of Innsmouth at Devil's Reef.
Yes, I do think about that all the time.
But the real question is, of course, what happened to Call of Cthulhu: Destiny's End?
I'm dying to know what happened to Call of Cthulhu: Destiny's End.
Let me tell you right now, Alan, that we're going to be doing something that no one else has done, which is actually showing that we're going to be showing screenshots from the unreleased Call of Cthulhu Destiny's End here on Electronic Game Information on May 5th, 2020. This has not ever been done on this show. It could have happened on other shows. Attack of the Show, G4 was a whole network at one point that was dedicated to video game news, but now it's just us. Now it's just us on AdultSwim.com delivering the news that no one else wants to think about. Games that just fall into the cracks of the games that fall into the dark corners of the earth.
And when an EGI kind of shines a bright light on those dark corners.
So this is an actual screenshot from Call of Cthulhu Destiny's End. You can see, of course, this is a Heretic screenshot from Heretic for the PC. If you remember our wonderful news coverage of Heretic, we do hope that somebody like Night Dive Studios takes the license from the people who have been keeping the Heretic and Hexen series from us for this entire time for the last 20 years, Alan.
Damn it.
So this is the actual screenshot. This is an actual screenshot, of course, of Call of Cthulhu Destiny's End running on this is not running on PlayStation 2 hardware. We cannot confirm that, but there it is. You can see the wonderful legs. You can see the back, the shoulders, the back of the head, the hair. There's wonderful hairs physics. There's hair. There is, of course, it's impossible to tell that this is a backpack, but you can see that you can imagine that if it is a backpack, then what goes in backpack but inventory.
Of course.
So you know that there's going to be an inventory management system. You know that there's going to be an inventory management system, much like there was in Heretic. Of course, they called that inventory manipulation. And
right again.
You can only imagine that because this was 2005, not the 1990s when Heretic came out, that looking up and down would have already been well established. So that's an EGI exclusive screenshot of Call of Cthulhu.
Wow.
Destiny's End. And I'm burning up with excitement, Alan, so I'm going to show you another one right here. This is some
EGI. I'm hot as hell. What is that?
This EGI exclusive screenshot of Call of Cthulhu Destiny's End. You can see the man made the plan.
End, huh?
This is he's beating them up. He's beating up the creatures that you see in the trailer.
Why?
He's in the woods. You can only imagine that he's visiting the woods outside of the town Innsmouth, which is where this game was supposed to take place, which is also where the first Call of Cthulhu Dark Corners of the Earth took place. So
it's a beautiful
that took place mostly in the nighttime. And this one, if you can see how bright and colorful this is, it's mostly taking place in the daytime as he fights back the evil. They could be the rat creatures. These could be from, if you think about all of the wonderful H.P. Lovecraft stories, all the different wonderful creatures. These look like they have some sort of kind of a vermin aspect, they almost rodent-like.
Yes.
The teeth, you see the sort of thin little teeth and the muzzle here. You wonder what rats do. What rats do when they become demons, much like the one story where the man moves into the big house which has rats under it.
Yes,
the rats in the walls.
Right.
So that was never made into a video game, Alan. But you can imagine that if they're pulling inspiration from all these different dark corners of the earth, that they can just figure out a way to embrace all those things. Then you will be sure to bring in a number of those characters from other
games,
stories.
I just want to comment on what a fascinating segment this has been, and so interesting that the one game was night and the other one was day.
Yes.
And daylight is the best disinfectant, and that's H.P. Lovecraft had famously said that, and it rings true today more than ever.
He said one or two things that can't be repeated in modern day in the context that we're in now, but it's very possible that he did say that, Alan. I can't contradict you there. Alan, what are people saying in the chat?
Well, I'll check on that, and I know what I am saying, which is that I love Robby and everything he's doing at EGI, and I just can't wait to visit him now that I'm fully mentally sound and ready to leave the house, ready to go and visit him and hug him and kiss him, and who knows what might happen.
Who knows?
But I'll check in on the chat.
Who knows what might happen if somebody like Night Dive Studios might get their hands on the source code for Vambrace. They might Vambrace the source code. If Night Dive Studio were to embrace They find the source code, Alan. Find the source code. Get your mitts dirty. Get yourself out there. Find out where this thing is. You know that there's a pre-alpha build of the game somewhere. And you got to get it.
Well,
so Night Dive Studio, this just in. We're going to check in with the chat. We're going to see what people are saying about
Van Brace. Wizard_Glick asks, what happened to it? So they're asking what happened to
never came out. So we don't know what happened to it. That's what that's the segment's about. We're asking the question. We're not giving any answers, Alan. We're only asking the question. And we have one more
for asking big questions.
These are big questions. Who are asking these questions? It's us. It's just us.
DR Ujan says in a very interesting font choice, they said chat wants trailer again. They want to watch the trailer again.
Do we have time to watch the trailer again? We don't have time to watch the trailer again. I didn't actually ask that to anybody. I just looked over here and just sort of assumed that someone over there said no, but there's no one there. It's just me here in the remote EGI headquarters. We are physically
We're alone,
and we are in the dark corner of the earth, and we are shining the light of research into this question. So here's this monster.
Wow, look at that.
And it looks like a rat, and it's got a little human head on it. So you wonder, was this a human before? Is this the family from Rats on the Walls? Did they find their way into Middle America, into northeastern Massachusetts or mid-Atlantic states where Innsmouth is supposed to be, the fictional town of Innsmouth?
Quick question about the rodent monster. The picture, it's hard to tell from the picture. Was that a real monster or is that a video game character?
This is a real monster that exists in the source code that we have to, that Night Dive Studios, we are EGI exclusive. We are calling on Night Dive Studios to find and release this game wherever it is, because we don't know where it is. We need to see it. We need to find out what happened after the credits rolled in Call of Cthulhu, Dark Corners of the Earth, the first-person shooter that asked so many questions, that answered half of them, but left the other half unanswered. Much like the story that it takes its final moments, the game's final moments, Call of Cthulhu, Dark Corners of the Earth, are of course inspired deeply by The Shadow Out of Time, the wonderful H.P. Lovecraft story where a detective is switches places with an alien being who lives in a very, very nice, very intellectually stimulating society, Alan.
Yes.
So let's take a quick break, and then when we come back from the break, we will be looking at Kingdoms of Amalur Reckoning and our living coverage of Kingdoms of Amalur Reckoning that just keeps on going as long as we are inside, physically distancing. Alan's not coming over. Roll the clip.
Hey, Robby. Someone in the chat, Shark Farts asks, What if Robby goes to Alan's house? Would that work? And I will just answer absolutely. That would be even better for me for a lot of reasons. I want you to see my space.
I can't come to Alan's house, but of course, everyone in the chat can go right to our social media accounts where you can find the full trailer for Call of Cthulhu Destiny's End. So if you were interested by the conversation, and if you were looking for ways to, if you're looking for something to send to Night Dive Studios, the trailer can be forwarded to them using those platforms. Tag at Night Dive, tag Electronic Game Information, EGI with Robby, and let them know that we are asking them, that we are begging them to release this game, to find the game, to release the game. We know that they can do it because they've been releasing so many wonderful games like Power Slave and Shadow Man and Turok 2 and hopefully Armorines for that was on the Nintendo 64 and PlayStation, and hopefully they'll take a swat at Shadow Man Second Coming for the PlayStation 2 on PC this time, because when they release a game they usually release it on many platforms including PC, and I find that playing the games on the PC makes the most sense.
And if we can send a man to the moon, we can release a game. So come on, what's the hold up?
Send a man to the moon. So it looks like I found Warden's Bridge and I've leveled up, Alan. So EGI exclusive, leveling up. Let's go right into the leveling up menus. Let's dive right in. Let's go ahead and level up. Got a lot of options here, Alan. So alchemy, blacksmithing, detect hidden. What does that mean?
I don't know. What do you think you might pick, Robby?
There's so many options, and that's the problem with these games, and that's the problem with Kingdoms of Amalur Reckoning, is that you only have 1 point to spend on these up character upgrades. But what do I choose? I'd like to get more gold, so maybe I'll get lock picking. But I'd also like to detect hidden, and that also seems to give me more gold. And also the mercantile gives me more gold. So there's all these different ways to get gold. If I had stealth, maybe I could get gold by crouching behind people and stealing the gold out of their pockets. Or maybe if I had sagecraft, I could get better quality shards and sell those for gold. There's all of these different ways to get to that, to answer that question. How do I get the gold? How do I get the gold?
I have no doubt in my mind that you will make the right choice, because you always do.
We do have to think about so many options here.
It's fascinating.
So I don't really feel like I can do this right now. There's too many options. So let's go and let's hear that siren one more time, because we have a brand new segment here on Electronic Game Information, never before seen Electronic Game Information segment. There it is. That's the siren that lets you know that the segment's inbound. It's on its way. Alan, why don't you key us into what this segment is? And while you're doing that, I'm going to man the chat, much like Headfirst Games was first in line to man the development of Call of Cthulhu Destiny's End. And just like I hope Headfirst Games is doing, I'm going to hand off the source code for Call of Cthulhu Destiny's End to Night Dive Studios, in this case, Alan Resnick. This is an EGR exclusive, brand new segment, never before seen on Electronic Game Information. Take it away.
Wow, I can't believe it. I can't believe you're going to be in the chat. The tables have truly turned. And Robby, be careful in there, because people like to use all sorts of language, and it is a dangerous place. Anyways, I am just so excited to be finally doing a new segment. This is Alan's Tips and Tricks. It's a new segment on EGI. Alan's Tips and Tricks by special EGI correspondent me, Alan Resnick.
Alan Resnick is new segment. We're doing some new segments. We've been bringing you all the great video games news and updates and discussions, and this is a brand new way of doing that.
Let's just jump right in with tip number 1. And this is a no-brainer. My first tip is, of course, Robby Ratcliffe.
What?
I think that's a no-brainer. My tip is Robby Ratcliffe. If you are stuck in a game, if you're having a hard time, call Robby. He knows games like you wouldn't believe. And so anytime I'm stuck in a game or don't know what to do, I just text or call. He doesn't know his answer, but I know he knows the answer because he's Robby. And if you don't know Robby, talk to someone who is similar to him in maybe physical build. Tip number 2.
Tip number 2. This is the second tip here in the brand new segment. Alan, the first tip was a pretty good tip, but what we're looking for maybe sequences, button pressing sequences. We're looking for passwords that could be typed in. If you think about the old password system from Star Wars Rogue Leader on the Nintendo GameCube that allowed you to unlock a wonderful Cadillac in the sky above the Star Wars universe.
So the company Cadillac exists in the Star Wars universe. And don't worry, Robby, the rest of my tips are what you said. They're not just all you. It's tips of how to play games. So tip number 2, save your games. I can't stress that enough, folks. Save your games. Some games claim to be auto-saving, but do not believe it. Every time I crouch behind a box, I save my game. Anytime I move into a new hallway, I save my game. Anytime I fire a bullet, I pause the game and I save it.
Alan, what an incredible tip, and it really crosses all sorts of genres. It crosses all sorts of platforms, and it crosses time and space. To be able to save your game, saving your game regularly is a great way to make sure that you don't lose that all important progress that you've made up until the point of, especially these old first-person shooter games like Heretic and Hexen that really have made a lot of people very frustrated over the years. If you can imagine playing a game like that, not being able to quick save, not being able to quick load when you need it the most.
It's a nightmare. It happens. How many times have you played a game from beginning to end, you finished the game, the credits rolled, and you haven't saved the fucking thing? This is a terrible thing. It happens all the time.
Okay, well,
it's worse than getting someone you love killed.
It's worse than getting someone you love killed, because someone that you love killed, at least they live on. They wait for you in heaven, and with a saved game, you just lose progress, and there's no heaven for saved games. Alan, we have some reaction to the segment right now. What this X Hard Reality asks, what if there are limited saves?
Well, if there's limited saves, I mean, you're just going to have to choose. It's like when you have a Russian roulette situation. You only have one bullet in the chamber, and you got to pick when you're going to shoot yourself in the head with the bullet. So this is the problem with limited saves. So I actually would just not play that game.
Or choose to play a game where you get to have multiple memory cards. If memory card limitation is the situation that's causing the limited save space, then you could probably get a second memory card for very little money. I believe that you could probably find old PlayStation or Nintendo 64 Dreamcast memory cards for very little money on various reselling sites on Amazon, or if you were to go to one of those markets in Shenzhen and one of those places that are run partially by the triads.
Absolutely, but just in those situations where you have a limited save, I just want to say, never ever save over. This is a tip 2.1. Never ever save over an old save file, because it could damage your RAM, and you might want to go back to those old save files. You never know, so don't do that. Moving on, tip number 3. Trick. This is a trick. It's not a tip. Trick number 3: use all the buttons. These modern controllers have a crazy amount of buttons, and if you're like me, you probably were only pressing 1 or 2 of the buttons. Turns out, as fate would have it, all the buttons usually do something. Not always, but most of the time, every button does something, and the only way to figure it out is by touching those damn buttons. So do that. Here's
an EGI exclusive look into that. Back to you, Alan. Is that some of the buttons are pressure sensitive for different levels of pressure. So sometimes there's more buttons than you think. There's 3 or 4 for one button.
Right, yes. Sometimes the joystick is a button, and it's not just for directions, it's a button. That's what I've found. And no one explains that until you push too hard on your controller and your character jumps up, and that's because you pressed a new button. Moving on to tip number 4. This is about buttons again. This is about the square button. During a cutscene, press and hold square, because they don't tell you this, but it will open up your menu after the cutscene before the battle, and you can readjust your materia and change weapons. Because in these games, in the battles, you cannot get into the menus because they don't want you changing your team in the heat of the battle. And these cutscenes go straight from cutscene to battle, and there's not a chance to reslot. materia. So just hold that square button. It'll save you a heck of a time.
I think that the games these days are so crazy, and the fact that you have to choose your team, that you have to switch people out at this point in history, just seems like an insult to those of us who spent so much of our young lives playing those games, switching out your characters, not having them level up at the same rate.
Absolutely,
the other characters leveling up at. If you look at look at something like Dragon Quest XI, which still makes you switch the characters, but at least it gives those characters that you're not using in battle at that moment it gives them some experience during battles.
Yes, it makes me sick to think about games that aren't doing this.
Makes me sick to think about games that aren't Dragon Quest XI. This just in.
Should I move on to tip number 5?
Yes, this is Tips and Tricks with Alan Resnick, a EGI exclusive, never before seen, it's a brand new segment.
Yes, this is trick number 5. It's a trick. Max out your settings. Go into your advanced settings and max them out to. You wouldn't believe how beautiful some of these games can look. I want you to turn on volumetric lighting. I want you to turn on motion blur. I want you to turn anti-aliasing up to 4x MSAA. Don't worry about frame rate, okay? Just want to stress that enough. Do not worry about frame rate. You want these graphics high, and if your temperature in your GPU gets too hot, then that's just a cherry on top.
If your GPU is, of course, the heart of the GPU is kind of like the heart of the machine. The CPU is the brain. The GPU is the heart and the arms.
And you want it beating hot and fast, so it's not bad for this to happen to your computer.
Exactly.
Or your machine,
much like if you see someone having a heart attack on the street, you beat them with your fists, with your arms. The arms are at the ends of the fists. You beat them until their heart starts again, which is just good citizenship. It's just good citizenship. Yes. Thank you for that wonderful tip, Alan.
Tip number 6. Watch someone else play the game. If a game is so hard, you're not having fun, then why are you playing the game? Other people play these games, and you can go online and you can watch full playthroughs of the game, and you can tell everyone that you played it, because you know exactly what happened, and there's almost no difference between watching and doing. And so that have been my tips and tricks. Back to you, Robby.
Back to you, Alan. We do have a question from BNJ Rivera. What's the best letter or icon for a controller button?
X.
The answer, BNG, hold on, let me type that in. The answer is X. Abby Snow asks, "What if my computer can't handle that?" I don't know what I don't know what they are talking about. If it's
they can, your computer can handle it. Your computer can handle it.
So let me type that in. Your computer can handle it. So set all your computers to handle the games, the brand new games. Your Doom Eternal, your Half-Life Alyx. That's for you, Alan. Half-Life Alyx out now on Steam and virtual reality.
It is so thrilling for me to watch you, Robby, do the chat, because I normally do it. So it's kind of like, hey, I'm Robby.
I'm really appreciating all the input that people are having. They're saying wonderful things. They're asking lots of great questions. Snowbeast wants to ask, what is your favorite menu option? They're directing that question at me, so I'm going to say that my favorite menu option is always to invert the Y axis. Some people like to have that inverted just as a default, but I like to be able to go into the menu and invert it by myself.
Robby, I made a little pineapple Robby, so I can spend time with Robby when he's not
Y
physically near me.
Axis here on Electronic Game Information. Alan, thank you for not gendering people right off the bat.
I would.
Thank you, and I appreciate that, you as well, for not doing that. One of us is in trouble. They wouldn't have said that otherwise. So we have another great question. Alan, aren't cheat codes cool?
Yes, absolutely. I think a cheat code is very cool. And I wish you could have a cheat code in life.
Please extrapolate what you're saying there, Alan, because this I think gets at the meat of tips and tricks.
Absolutely. So, you know better than anyone, life is full of tragedy and sadness, and you wish more than anything you could control other people. You could control life itself. And if I could just open up a little button, look, a little console in the sky, and type in like, hang out with Robby right now, and boom, you're here, I'm there, whatever it is, we're together, physically together in the same space, maybe 1 foot apart, maybe less. And I think that cuts quickly to the core of my tips and tricks segment and cheat codes in real life. Such an interesting concept.
Such an interesting concept, Alan. If you had a cheat code, you could summon all sorts of vehicles from different universes and use them in real life. You could drive around. You could respawn the vehicles when they blow up because you drive them too fast and too hard. You could also have infinite ammo, which could come in handy if things got really bad.
And no consequences. So any kind of crime, any kind of taboo thing you wanted to do that people were mocking you about the day before is now a fair game because you cheated.
But also it doesn't, no consequences because you've been quick saving. You've been saving regularly. You can do a quick load. You can get right back to where you started. EGI doesn't.
Tip number 2.
That was tip number 2, the save game one.
Save game. And
If you wonder about those memory cards, Alan, how much do you think those memory cards are?
I would
ask
ask
the chat.
Ask the chat. But I would wager a guess that a memory card for an old console like that would probably be about $60 to $300, somewhere in that range. I'm not an expert like you. Back to you, Robby.
Back to you, Alan. I mean, I've asked. This is us flipping the tables back onto the chat because the chat's supposed to be asking us questions, but instead we are asking them questions like, how much are the memory cards?
And it's such an interesting thing that EGI is willing to flip the script in such a dramatic way, and I'm ready to hang out.
Well, Alan, it's not going to happen tonight. We do still have a stay-at-home order. We still have shelter in place. We still are under the wonderful guidance of the great governor of California,
Gavin Newsom. And Mayor Garcetti.
And Mayor Garcetti, what a guy! What a guy! What great suits! Shiny as hell. That's you might want to ask what the hell is going on, where he can be under so much stress and look so young.
Yes, absolutely, and he's definitely going to let some of the rules slide in special circumstances where friends miss friends. So I'm looking forward to.
So you're looking for a cheat code from Mayor Eric Garcetti, the mayor of beautiful Los Angeles, California.
And I do, and I'm sure he is watching. So this is me putting in my official request for a cheat code to let me hang out with my best friend Robby and get closer than 6 feet to Robby.
And this is me reiterating an earlier request that I said, this EGI exclusive request to put in for Night Dive Studios to find Call of Cthulhu Destiny's End, bring it back. Show us the game. Don't show us these teaser trailers. We're sick and tired of watching the same teaser trailer for the last 15 years. Just imagining what the game could be. Show us what it was, and let's get back to business. Let's get out of the lockdown. Let's make sure that when we get out, we have tons of great Night Dive Studio remasters at the ready and waiting. Maybe published by none other than the company that makes the rare game releases.
Yes.
All right, so let's take a quick break, and we will be right back with more exclusive electronic game information coverage.
Flyers is severely damaged. The rest of the crew have gone to look for material, but will also need some gas to re-inflate the balloons. Search through these buildings and bring us back some gas. May the powers of the Green Pearl protect you.
Hey, and we are back. Electronic Game Information is back. It is time for the list. Alan, are you ready to get back on the chat to make sure that people are following along? Keep the iron hot, keep the iron thin, so when it slides into the body, it makes the most blood. That's what they say.
Yeah, I have heard people say that quite a bit, and I am back in the chat.
We're back in. Alan's back in the chat.
We're gonna do the list.
We're gonna do the list. So of course, because we've had such a wonderful conversation here tonight on Electronic Game Information, we are going to be doing a list, of course, of Call of Cthulhu games, specifically Call of Cthulhu games, and not simply games that are inspired by Call of Cthulhu, inspired by the Cthulhu mythos or H.P. Lovecraft stories. These are specifically Call of Cthulhu games. So let's dive right into the list with, of course, Call of Cthulhu: Dark Corners of the Earth. Now, if you are just joining us, we had a very long conversation about Call of Cthulhu: Dark Corners of the Earth that I'm going to repeat as quickly as possible, which is that this is a first-person shooter game that has survival elements, it has adventure elements, it has no heads-up display. It's on the Xbox and PC. It was made by Headfirst Games. It is a solid 7 out of 10 on the list. Call of Cthulhu games. Sometimes 7 out of 10 games aren't. Sometimes more 8 out of 10 games get on the list, but in this case, it's a 7 out of 10 game, which is Call of Cthulhu: Dark Corners of the Earth, and it's on the list.
Yeah.
So, Alan, what are people?
Freak 96. Sweet Freak 96 says, "I love the list," and I love the list as well. That's Alan talking now.
Well, we all love. Well, it's important that we do the list because we have such a short period of time on Earth that we got to get the games on the list so that they're always there for people to look back and say, was that game on the list? And yes, it was on the list. So do people have any sort of thoughts about Call of Cthulhu: Dark Corners of the Earth before we move on to our next game on the list?
Let's see. Jeremy Mauro says, at Robby Ratcliffe, Alone in the Dark has a lot of dark corners, and Cthulhu is in it. Recommended. So that's...
No, it's not. Well, recommended is a squishy word that I can't quite get out properly, but I will say that it is not a Call of Cthulhu specific game, even if it is partially inspired by those stories, if it's partially inspired by the mythos, by the culture. It's an adventure game. It's point and click. It's got the monsters, but it doesn't have the name Call of Cthulhu in it. It does not. So Alone in the Dark is, of course, not on the list.
Jeremy Morrow, shame on you. Shame on you for messing with the list.
Alone in the Dark 1, Alone in the Dark 2, The Ghost Pirate 1, and 2008's Alone in the Dark, which, of course, was a game that showed how wounds could be interpreted. Next up on the list, of course, is Call of Cthulhu: The Wasted Land. Call of Cthulhu: Wasted Land. It's The Wasted Land, and it is a World War I era strategy game with elements of the mystical, with elements of the occult, with the creatures that you know and love from the stories, from the novellas and the short stories and the books and everything that came out around that time. The Call of Cthulhu: The Wasted Land, of course. The Wasted Land is, of course, No Man's Land, the famous strip of land between the Axis lines and the Allied lines on the battlefield in Alsace-Lorraine, in Western Russia, in Austria-Hungary, or in the sea, off the sea. If you look at the sea near Constantinople. I don't remember. Alan, you're the Turkey expert, so I don't know which of it was at that time when it was still part of that huge the massive Ottoman Empire, which ceased to be Istanbul, or was it Constantinople? At that time they changed it.
Right,
they changed it back. The New Turks changed back. That there was a political movement, not the YouTube channel. That's a whole other situation that we cannot get into because we're doing the list right now.
Estebo 73 says, "Your kiss is on my list." Now that's a little a funny joke. There's not a game called that. That's just a gag.
There is a there. Well, that's the crazy thing, Alan, is that these people watching this show, the fans of the show, they're in the chat. They're asking the right questions. They're saying the right things because there is a Kiss video game. There's actually several.
I want Alan to come over and kiss me. It's Robby.
All right, so let's move on to Call of Cthulhu: Shadow of the Comet, of course, a game that we listed in the top of the show, and it is a very intriguing game because it's all pixel art. It looks weird. It comes only on hard discs. Although you can buy it, of course, right now on goodoldgames.com, and I will go and look up the price for you right now. Here, this is EGI exclusive price. What is it called? Price searching. Pointing at the price. I'm pointing at the price here on electronicgameinformation.com. It's Good Old Games' shadow of the comment on electronicgameinformation.com. It's on the list. I can't type without looking at the keyboard, and I got to keep my eyes on the list. So next up is Call of Cthulhu. This is a tough one, Alan, because we don't know if this one's on the list or not, but it's Call of Cthulhu. It's Prisoner of Ice.
Sounds like it's on the list because it has Call of Cthulhu right in the name.
Well, it doesn't always have Call of Cthulhu in front of the name. Depending on what region you're in, it had Call of Cthulhu or it didn't have Call of Cthulhu. For some people, it's just Prisoner of Ice, a wonderful World War II era point-and-click action game. If you think about World War I with Call of Cthulhu, The Wasted Land, that actually came out more recently. That was for smartphones. If you can imagine, I had a smartphone. I lifted it up. I showed you Call of Cthulhu, The Wasted Land on the smartphone. That's where it would be. But Call of Cthulhu, The Prisoner of Ice, is not on any current smartphones that we know of right now. That doesn't mean that you can't use DOSBox or hack or play Prisoner of Ice on your smartphone in one way or the other. But the best way to play it is
it's not on the list.
It's on the phone. It's on the. It doesn't matter. Well, we don't do the phone. If you start talking about the phone, this is why we don't talk about the phone on the list. Is that this opens a whole other category of games of point. There's no point and clicks that do better on the phone than they would just with a good old mouse and keyboard that you have to type what's the name of your character? It is
Robby.
KD. And Call of Cthulhu, Shadow of the Prisoner of Ice. You're in the submarine. He's in the ice. Get out of the submarine. Get into the ice. Find the creature and track him down before the Germans do. Because if the Germans get their hands on all of that wonderful elder gods technology, then the game's up and the Allies are toast. Alan.
Crazy stuff.
It's
and that was the list.
That was not. No. That was a list.
That was the list.
Ooh, that was the list. That was a good list. What did you think of the show, Alan?
I would say that this has been the top episode of electronic game information of my lifetime. So the bar is extremely high. Even though last week's episode was so much better and so good and so great, this is still my top choice of EGI episodes because I got to spend time with Robby, and that's like a treat on top of dessert.
Oh, I forgot one of the Call of Cthulhu games. Do you think we have time to put it on the list?
It's worth a shot.
Okay, so this is the Call of Cthulhu game. It's on the list. It's just called Call of Cthulhu. It just came out for multi-platform, Xbox, PlayStation 4, and PC. It's on the list because it is also on the Nintendo Switch. How do you get all of that Call of Cthulhu adventure game action onto a Switch, you ask? Well, it's just with creative developers and people that are willing to put in the time to make the textures much smaller, to drop the tessellation down significantly, so you're not getting those wonderful smooth edges. You're getting hard, jagged edges, no anti-aliasing, but you're playing Call of Cthulhu. It's a first-person adventure game. It's on the list.
What a beautiful list. And you know what I say about the list? Bless this mess, because this list it's just fun.
Okay, I think we got the last... I think that's it. So let's talk about how the show went, Alan. What did you think about the show?
I would have to say that out of every single episode you've ever done, I haven't been on all of them, but if you take the entire EGI catalog, the discography, if you will, this would be the first track on the discography if it was music, because it's the hit, it's the one that people want to hear most of all, because I think it's the best. It's catchy, it's fun, and it's almost over.
I keep thinking I forgot one of the Call of Cthulhu games.
Well, add it to the list because it just seems like
let's
you
just
can.
go ahead and I think we're going to do something unprecedented. We're going to go back to the list one more time. We're going to hit the list with one more Call of Cthulhu game, and this is just one from the top of my head. I don't know if it actually exists, but
This is so cool.
It's Call of Cthulhu: The Shrouded Isle.
Call of Cthulhu.
I think it was the Shrouded Isle. It might have been the Mysterious Island. The Call of Cthulhu, it's the island, of course. The island is very hard to pronounce. It's a name that's very, very hard to pronounce. The Shadow Isle, the Secret Isle, the Secret Island, not the Secret World, not the massively successful, massive multiplayer role-playing game of the name Secret World. It's the Secret Isle or the Shade of the Isle. It's the Shadow of the Isle.
What a treat to be able to see the list 3 times.
Well, we got to get it right, Alan, because we only have so many hours and days and weeks left on this planet. So we got to make sure that we use every opportunity to get games on the list before the bell strikes us down. Before the bell rings and the life leaves the mouth. And it's like it's not like a ding ding ding. It's like a dong. It's like a
gong.
Bong.
Like a gong.
But they're not a gong because they hit the gong one time and that rings forever. It's like one dong.
It's like one.
No, it's 2 dongs. Dong, dong.
It's like when a boat comes in from a misty sea, they ring the gong twice for the boat to come ashore.
That was the list. So let's talk about Alan, how did you feel like the show went tonight?
You know, it was so good, Robby.
I feel that coming through the internet. I feel your emotions. I feel your sad. It's sad. It is a sadness also.
And that's why I'm crying, because it is sad that such a good episode ended.
Why do we have to end the episodes? That's what I keep asking myself. It's just, why can't these things keep on going? Why do we limit ourselves just to the games that have Call of Cthulhu in the title?